So opening up Excel here, of course you should know by now we have all these columns and of course we have rows. The intersection of a column and a row is pretty much a cell/cell reference. Up in the top left hand corner here, this is our name box. It tells you what cell you are in. If you select a group of cells, it just refers to the very first cell that you selected. We will be talking about naming groups of cells at a later date and time, but for now, just know that this is a name box, and you can actually click in that name box and put in A67, and it takes me right to that cell A67. Just some basic things on here. I want to talk about the ribbon a little bit. Normally I introduce this on the very first day, but being online it's been a little bit different. So the ribbon obviously has all these file commands up here. File, this is what they call backstage view now. It's a little bit different than what it used to be called. And of course down here, when we go to print, it is a print preview, but they really don't call it anymore. It's mainly a backstage view. The Home tab, very similar to Microsoft Word, Publisher, PowerPoint. They all have what they call groups. This as a whole is the Home tab or the ribbon. Each one of these is divided by a group. If these groups have like a little, what they call a dialog launcher arrow in the bottom right hand corner, you should be able to click on the arrow and it opens up whatever that group is associated with. In this case, this group is the font, alignment, number, and none of these have that dialog box. Now the key with this font, alignment, and number, if I click on it, it opens up this Format Cells dialog box. You should get very comfortable with this Format Cells dialog box. This is huge in Excel to get used to. Most of the time I just right click and it goes right to my format. I can select Format dialog box. But each one of these, font, alignment, and number, have a dialog launcher on them. But every time I launch it, in this case it was the number group, it just selects the number tab. If I launch this from the alignment group, it's going to open up the Format Cells with the alignment tab selected. If I launch it from the font, obviously it's going to select it with the font tab selected. Plenty of ways to get to this Format Cells. We will deal more with that Format Cells dialog box at a later date and time. Looking at the Home tab, we have a lot of text selections as far as changing the text, changing the attributes, style, fonts, things along those lines. Font group, alignment group, number group, style, cells, editing, and ideas. On the Insert tab, it's just like it states, you're inserting something. Just remember, when you insert something, I'm going to just insert something. Let's do a quick shape here. Click on my rectangle, select that rectangle, I insert it. When you insert anything into, whether it be Word, PowerPoint, Excel, or Publisher, it creates an object. That object happens to open up this extra tab down here called a contextual tab. That will be on a test somewhere. If I deselect that object, obviously that tab does not light up. Just remember that, because people will start playing around trying to figure out, say they select this cell right behind this and they're like, well, I selected the object, but I can't do anything with it. I can't change the font. You have to have this object selected in order for this shape format contextual tab to light up. And once it lights up, by all means, you can do all kinds of different things with this shape. We can change the shape. There we go. We can change the color. We can change the fill. We can change the outline. Nice deep blue. We have effects down here. All kinds of different effects. I always like the glow effects personally. Word style, if you're typing words in here. This deals mainly with your word styles. In order to type a word in there, select it, right click, edit text. We don't technically have any text in here yet. We're just gonna write Excel is fun, ding ding ding. Now with this, of course, I can change the font color of that text. Just like anything else when it comes to some of this stuff, make sure stuff contrasts. If you're putting text on top of a picture or an object, same thing when we get the charts, making sure things contrast. I don't want to spend that much time with this group thing or the insert thing. Drawing, you may or may not have drawing on your tab. It depends on what version of Excel you have. I have an Office 365 subscription that I pay monthly, so it updates all the time. I know a lot of versions don't have this draw. Of course, with this, I can click on here. I do have a touchscreen. That's a good question. Maybe it's because I have it. But either way, I can draw on here because I have a touchscreen. Or if you had a tablet or any kind of touchscreen. And it has an eraser on there as well that you can come in here, erase. Maybe sometimes you gotta hit these things just right in order to erase it. Page layout deals mainly with how it's gonna look on a page. This is something in our rubric that I wanna make sure you take a look at, because normally in Excel is what I call flows left to right. Doesn't mean you can't print out in portrait. In the financial business world, we have what we call P&Ls or income statements. Income statements tend to be printed in what they call portrait, a regular sheet of paper. Where balance sheets, which is still a business, gets printed in landscape, so it's wider than it is taller. Be aware of how you're printing off stuff in Excel. Like I mentioned, printing off is part of your rubric to ensure, and I'll have a whole different video, because printing can be tricky in Excel. I remember the first time I was doing Excel, this is a long time ago. I'm not gonna age myself, it's like 15, 20 years ago. I forget when Excel came out, been on it forever, it seems like. I accidentally hit something down on like cell, I don't know, let's try A1100. Something down like here, I accidentally hit something, hit Control Home, went to print it, File Print, and look at it, it's printing 24 pages. This is why it's so important to ensure that you know what you're printing, because Excel is big. If you're not careful and you don't select that print, then it will go crazy as far as printing off blank pages. These will all be blank pages. There's nothing in there until I get to page 24, which has that little, actually 24 doesn't even have the dot on there. Oh, you know why? I bet you it's because it's an apostrophe. It added it in the cell. You can't even see it because that's part of a formula. So I gotta go back there and erase that stinking thing. Oop. Too forward. Yeah, because I did an apostrophe, which if you do an apostrophe, it's gonna hide it. We'll discuss apostrophes later. But like I said, if you put something down in that cell, like a word or a letter, it's gonna print all the way down. So this page setup has a dialog box launcher on it, which has the page setup on here. It deals with the header, footer, sheets, and we'll talk more about printing in a whole separate video. Scaling the print. A lot of times I'll come down here on my status bar, you have these three different views. You have a normal view, page layout view, and page break preview. I like using that page break preview personally to set up the scaling / how my pages are going to look. But again, we'll get to that one later. Formulas. There are tons of formulas, hundreds of formulas. They have them all in these groups in the function library. I'm not looking at you memorizing all these formulas and where they're located. We'll deal with formulas later as well. I'll talk more about that. Name manager, doing formula auditing and calculations. We'll deal with that once we get up and running with formulas and functions. Data, depending on what kind of data you're talking about, you can import data, move data from a database, or export it. You can do queries. They've changed because normally if Excel gets too big, you want to put it in a database. Not that you can't use Excel as a database, but if it gets too big, it's better to be in a database program. And some of this data tools we'll be using: text to column, sorting, forecasting, grouping, subtotals. Review tab. This review tab, the one main thing I want simple: spell check. Spell check, spell check, spell check. I wish I can actually circle. Trying to circle it, but you can't probably see my pen anyhow. You have to do a spell check in Excel. Excel, if you type a word wrong, G-R-E-G-M-U-C, it's not going to underline it. Where PowerPoint, Word, Publisher, all of those were underlined, and a lot of programs out there red underline if you misspell a word. It does not underline in Excel, mainly because these formulas, if you look at these formulas aren't always real words, like number value. Yes, that's a compound word, but they treat it as one word. Mid, I guess mid could be rept, R-E-P-T here. I'm not sure what that one is. Repeats text given. Yeah, we don't have to get into that, but just know that you have to do a spell check. It's one of the main things in this review tab that we're going to be dealing with is a spell check. Also down here, we can protect the worksheet. Viewing. Don't really deal much with view, except the same worksheet views up in here are the ones in the bottom corner. I think of anything else in viewing, maybe freeze panes. We will get into freeze panes a little bit. I tend to do that if your spreadsheet gets too big. Developer, you may not have your developer tab turned on. In order to turn that developer tab on, File, Options, I swear they move options all the times. Customize ribbon, and normally this developer tab is not checked. And I'm not sure whether we're going to get into macros or not in Excel 1, but that is a reason why we use a developer tab. I tend to keep it on personally, so that will open up your coding, XML, Visual Basic, all that stuff to create macros or what have you. And like I said, we may get into that maybe towards the end. Of course, there's a nice help here. Helps change through the years. And this one has a QuickBooks, just for the fact I have a QuickBooks in with you. Also on this ribbon, quick access menu at the top up here. It's part of your screen, not necessarily part of your ribbon. It's called a quick access menu. You click on this drop down, it has these little check marks on icons you can open up. I think they changed this in like 2007. They sort of created this quick access menu. So if I uncheck open, it gets rid of my open. If I uncheck new, gets rid of my new. So you can customize this however you like. That is a quick access menu. That is it for our ribbon introduction I will be posting other videos later on as far as format box, printing, functions, formulas, getting into the heart when we're dealing with formulas, how to enter the formulas, edit the formulas, how to honestly just create a good flowing professional worksheet.